Shalom, everyone. It is so special, so wonderful to be recording a live episode of Just for This, which is the oh, which is the podcast that I am proud to host each week. And as Jason said, you can find it on any podcast platform if you listen on Spotify, app, whatever. Just search for Just for This. We'll talk about where the title comes from a little bit ways in. Good things to know. This is a live podcast. So that means you are a live studio audience. And if you had a chat about something, if you want to everybody check your phones would be so cool now if you didn't check them before services, just to make sure that they're like off. Then anything that happens in the room is going to be recorded in the podcast, which is great. And that's what's so special about getting to have Shira here is we're going to get to talk together and hear music, and we'll see. She may invite you into the music a little bit as well too, and for that we definitely want you to be welcomed in and part of the experience, because typically I don't do all of these live, so it's really a special treat to be welcomed by Kol Ami to get to record this live episode, and really special to have all of you be a part of this as well. So we're going to jump in. Shira, it's so good to see you. I'm so glad that we get to have this live conversation, to be recording an episode of Just for This together. And I would love it if you could start out just by introduce yourself a little bit to the folks listening here in the room and folks listening at home.
Yes. Hi. I'm so happy to be here with you. We met not that long ago, and it was an instant, alchemic, creative energy, and I'm so happy to be here with you. Thank you for this invitation. Yes. Hi, everyone. My name is Shira Klein. I'm a ritual artist. I'm a musician and a spiritual leader and a creator and a dancer and a sister and a mother and a friend and a connector and a present tense thinker.
That's a lot of really good descriptors. I love it. And I love to start out by asking my guests, inviting you to share a little bit of your own story, your own journey, because I think something, we were chatting about this a little bit earlier, that I love about hosting a podcast themed around women in leadership and us chatting about leadership is helping people see the really infinite paths that someone can take to their own form, their medium of leadership, and just love to hear a little bit more about your own story.
Okay, so when I hear the word leadership, it's like one of those touch points that just kind of immediately blooms out in so many ways that I wonder, what is the origin of my leadership? I think that's a great personal journey question. The first thought is that when I was a child, I dressed 100% out of the costume box. And I think that is a part of my leadership journey, honestly, because somehow I had more of a 360-degree awareness everywhere I was going, and I think that is still something that has been instrumental in understanding where I am now. My father was a Reform rabbi. He is a Reform rabbi. My mother was a modern dancer. The house was like filled with musical instruments and just storytelling. And every holiday that we celebrated was like everyone walked in the door and they were handed song sheets. And so every holiday was like around the table, tons of food, tons of people, very messy, very loud, and filled with music. So my parents were absolutely modeling for me a living Jewish way. And it became very natural to me to be seeking that kind of experience, like in community, as a Jewish, as a Jewish person in today's world. When I also grew up at the URJ summer camps, which means the reason why I tell you that is because it means
we can get a cheer in the room for
Yeah.
URJ summer camp.
I was a diehard Azuri camper, and what that means, when somebody tells you that, what that means is they had song sessions 3 times a day under the tree. And
I've been there. I didn't grow up at Osrui.
Yeah.
I grew up at Eisner, and now we're a second gen Eisner family. But I've been to Osrui, and they do sing so much, and it is amazing. And they like sit and really feel the music, and it's just, and knowing that about you and that connection that you have, that a lot of that really like fills out some of the music that I've experienced with you.
Totally. I could just go back to that moment exactly right now, just under that tree, under the big sky, like music, and there was something was being unrolled for me, like the path forward was being unrolled before me with all these artists. That was really what was my inspiration. For the record, I did make a promise to myself that I would never want, growing up as the daughter of a rabbi, where I'm from in deep south in Louisiana, the daughter of the rabbi.
I have family from that part of the South,
and that's
in-law
your name
family.
too now.
Yeah.
Rabbi. Growing up as a daughter of a clergy person, I made a staunch promise to not become a Jewish professional, and definitely not a leader. So,
how's that working out for you?
it's a question I ask myself every day. It's confusing. It's really confusing, but I would say that my father, in the way that he held space for his congregation, and the way my mother taught us, like from inside the house, what is Jewish, what is spirituality, and what is practice. Like, I admire them very much. They are still my primary teachers. I study with my dad every week. The question of like signing up for a leadership role, though, it wasn't on my horizon. It's something that just became more apparent to me in every sort of life spiral I took. So my journey is in some ways a very like large playground filled with like curiosity and amazing teachers, some of who are in this room right now. And I just am somebody who's kind of always surrounded by teachers on all sides. So there's no lack of continuing this growth.
Well, I actually wanted to ask you about that, because I think that so much of the leaders that each of us become is in conversation with the folks who pointed the way, right? And especially as you are sharing, maybe based on where you grew up with, and, sort of wanting to do the alternative, opposite, whatever the case may be, that it wasn't necessarily where you originally saw yourself. Who are some of the folks who pointed the way for you?
I think that some of the first people that pointed the way for me was like my first grade teacher, Mrs. Diedemeyer, who just picked me up and put me on the stage. Like, I don't know what she was like, you be the, I forget what you call it when you like have an opening. Did you have that in grade school, like openings?
No.
Did anybody have that? We had like,
I was thinking like
everybody comes to opening. That was like the opening.
I was thinking about like my now 5-year-old getting to like be Pharaoh in the school play.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah.
For me, it was, she was like, you're going to basically MC the school opening.
Okay,
and so
yeah.
I remember I had like she would made the paper hat out of a paper bag or something, and just was like, put me on the stage and was like, riff, basically, and put a microphone in my hand. And that's a very funny memory. But I love her for seeing me for something that I would never have been able to articulate myself. Many years later, like I said, all the song leaders I ever had were just incredible teachers and just like lovers. They taught me how to love. They taught me what is the meaning of life, honestly, through collective energy and singing. And putting text to music is no joke.
No, we share that about song leading. I was also raised in the camp and nifty youth movement song leading culture, and there's something really special about song leading, and certainly many song leaders are composers and performers and sort of have that outlet and do concerts in that space as well too. But song leading is a very special blend, right? You hear it right there in the word that's made up that my Microsoft Word is always telling me isn't a word. That we have music and leadership in one spot. It's something I think very native originally to the Reform movement, and that really gives shape to a lot of the ways that we come together in song and in prayer.
I would love to share a memory of one of my first moments as a song leader, because, and here's like one of the moments of the synchronicities of the universe. One of my very first major moments of song leading was in this room.
That's crazy. Just remind folks at home, and thanks to the folks who have joined us, we're at Congregation Kol Ami in White Plains.
So once upon a time, in a land many, many lifetimes ago, it was, before it was named Kol Ami, it was the Jewish Community Center of White Plains, which, for the record, was never the JCC of White Plains. I don't remember ever calling it nope, see, I'm getting some nods. It was the Jewish Community Center of White Plains. And I was a college student at a nearby college. And every Sunday morning, I would ride down the beautiful hills to get here, and just these beautiful roads of Westchester. And the first day of school, I was given like okay, we're gonna do an opening. It was like that, the opening ceremony, whatever it was. And there I was, and there was like, it's from my memory, like hundreds of children, just thousands of kids, just billion children, like a sea, as many as the stars in the sky kind of thing. And it was really I had been a camp counselor and a camp song leader with 20 kids, 15 kids, maybe even like all of camp song session, but with 10 other song leaders, and this was like really that moment. I recently learned this phrase that particular kinds of social attention, especially when they come through artistic senses and somatic practice, they expand and they grow geometrically, which is to say, the moment a song is sung in a group that hasn't ever come together, it was the first day of the year, they started singing together, you could feel the room like, it just, we sang Hine Matov in a big call and response piece, and I think it was one of those moments that I was like struck by the power of collective energy and the way it can move and what it's capable of.
You describe it so beautifully. There's no other feeling like it, right? The feeling of people, especially kids, right? But anyone, people coming together in song, and like you described it as geometric, right? It's that fractal, right? The repeat, and yes, what is it fractal. Sending out into the universe when people come together and have this sense. I love the sociologist Emil Durkheim, who says that we come together and we become more than the sum of our parts. He calls that collective effervescence. And that's exactly what I experience it the most when people are getting together and singing in that way.
It's so beautiful. Collective effervescence. Yum, that's delicious.
Don't you want to just like embrace it?
I'm in it. Yeah. It's happening right this second. I love that. I think that's just a symbol, like a single pinpoint in what it's been like to follow this path. So whereas I may not have sought out a leadership role, and goddess knows I was never like in the school government or something like that, where leaders are developed. I don't know, but somehow I never really left that scene. And then there was the day I experienced that with very young children, like 3, 4, 5s. That was another effervescence altogether. So that was another like major turning point and trajectory of learning to be a leader.
I want to ask you so many things, but I would love it if you could share a little bit more about the work that you're doing now, the way that you're showing up, the way that you are leading and sharing art and music with the world.
With pleasure. I'm a co-founder of a community called Labschule. And before that, we were a ritual theater company called Storytelling. Labschule is, in fact, a laboratory shul. And it is such a privilege to wake up every day and show up like a spiritual scientist, basically, like to go into the lab and experiment. We often call ourselves deep inside tradition, way outside the box, because the tools of our experimentation are nothing short of, the ancient texts. And, there's just infinite iterations that our teachers have taught us, and the precedent for experimentation is so strong in Judaism that we're in good company. So we are a gathering community. It's kind of the best way I can describe that. We do not meet every week. We don't have a Hebrew school exactly. We do meet in salon settings and classes. We are experimenting with God language. We do that as a way of interrupting certain patriarchal transmissions. We are curious. If we were to use the mystic's lesson of rearranging Yud He Vav He, which is the epic, beautiful, unto itself, its own mystery name, not to be pronounced, only to be breathed. But strangely, somehow it became translated as something that is uber masculine and uber supremacy oriented, right? So we thought, and we've been planning to do this, and we scaffolded it as best we could so we didn't freak people out too much. We freaked a lot of people out, but that's part of the experiment. What would happen if, instead of using the words for God that were really like Lord, 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 King, 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 all of these, what if we switched and used Havaya, the He Vav, Yud He spelling instead? What would happen in 300 years if people related to God in the less patriarchal and supremacy nature? What would happen? Like, honestly. We also followed in the footsteps of Reb Zalman, who we are definitely children of Reb Zalman at Labschule, and replaced Melech with Ruach. Again, replacing the Melech is a beautiful term, the rules of the universe, but commonly translated as king. What would happen if we could replace king with presence and spirit and energy and connection? Would that change us as human beings? So that's the kind of work we're doing right now.
I mean, experiments that disrupt the patriarchy, that's something that I can get into. And I know that the work of over a century of women of Reformed Judaism has followed its own thread on that. But I love that you're focusing on language as the way to do that, because we have, as you described, this sort of transmitted images, and they're so ingrained. What does it mean to play with that, to give people different openings and opportunities, and to do that in the spirit of experimentation as well?
Yeah, and in the spirit of Jewish practice, in the spirit of inquiry and meaning making, which is just being alive, So the prayer book is like the most incredible script of it's like scripted dreaming, it's scripted adventure, scripted creativity. It's right there. I don't have to make anything up. Sometimes people ask me, they say, so are you guys kind of bringing something back to life, or you're, and I'm like, no. And they're like, oh, you're innovating. I'm like, no, we're excavating. Ooh,
you just excavating. That's what you said.
Yeah.
You're excavating instead of innovating.
Yeah,
I love it.
Yes. I don't need to, we don't need to feel like we're doing something new and cool. That's really not it. We're really actually the biggest nerds of text and religion. We sleep with prayer books underneath our pillow and then, dream forward but this is not coming out of some place to find something. We're looking for what's alive in the room, not what's not alive.
Yeah, and I think that in order to figure that out, you have to try some things. Because I loved also what you said about experimenting. Before I was honored to lead WRJ, I was a congregational rabbi at a Reformed congregation, and it was a congregation that also loved to experiment. And we would love to throw things at the wall see if they stuck on the wall. If they didn't stick to the wall, we would pick them up and reform them into something else, or recycle it, compost it, and try again. But the openness, the willingness to excavate, experiment, and to then innovate to find new things, but to know that not every experiment is going to work also.
Yeah, getting it to work is actually not the point. So that's helpful. That's a really helpful relief of like, I just want to, turn it. That's, again, we're not, that's just what we've been taught. That's how we be.
We also had the opportunity to meet and to work together to shape an experience for a different arm, a different affiliate of the Reform movement, the Early Childhood Educators of Reform Judaism. Talk a little bit about the work you've done with them and the beautiful work that all of them, of course, do in shaping and creating the container and the safety and the experience and the growth for our youngest people.
Yes, our very youngest. Thank you for asking about that. Liz, this is like one of the most important parts of my life is work with the ECERJ, and I've actually we've been working together for something like 25 years. They were in formation right around the time that I was coming into my own formation, like right around the time I just described to you. And somebody said, you should meet the EC, you should meet Nancy Bossoff, you should come and meet these people. So I just, like the kid dressing out of the costume box, just opened, knocked on their door and was like, I'm here to meet you. And they didn't have a song leader exactly. And so I said, I would love to work with you. I was just coming into my own as an early childhood music teacher, which was an exquisite, imagine that, like the energy of the 3 and the 4-year-olds and their wildest dreaming abilities. So that was amazing, and I had fallen in love with that work. So I basically said to the ECRJ in my very young 20s, I said, I will go wherever you are going and just be your, to sing with you.
That's very Ruth of you.
I literally said
I will go where you will go, ECERJ.
I said, where you die, I will die. I just said the whole thing. And they were very generous and very sweet, and they said yes. And I really have grown up with them. I truly have. That organization is in such a unique position where they train each other. It is like really a women's retreat in many ways, which is to say it's highly intelligent. It is one of the wisest groups of people you can imagine, working with hundreds of early childhood directors, like a women's conference. So working at the height of child development. They are teaching, they are raising the next generation, and they are doing it with outrageous levels of like care and attention and spiritual wisdom. So I continue to follow them wherever they go, and I will be there with them. So at this point, 25 years later, we really have become a community that's growing together, and so people, when they come into the conferences, we get a lot of feedback like, wow, this is not like any other conference that we go to. Like, it's very different because it is extremely intentional. It's filled with feelings. It's like a feelings-forward community.
I want you to describe like the smush. Is that what you call it? Can you describe it? Or is it indescribable? Because I'm not sure I could describe it, but you have facilitated and seen it so many times, this exercise that you do with the early childhood educators.
So when you're, as a song leader, there's like, we call it location, like how you set up a room as a song leader, or, our clergy in the room know that like you probably just, I can't imagine how many meetings it took to come up with this exact shape, and like how are you going to place this and where do you place the people. So the location of body to body is absolutely everything. And we like to talk about the power of a circle. Everybody loves a circle. But even right now, I'm so far away from you that if it was really up to me, I would just like, and you know this about me, like I would prefer to come sit in your lap. Like I'd like to be much, much closer to you. When we sing together, singing in a big full moon, like everybody on the outside of the circle, is powerful because the shape of a circle is powerful. Singing in rows across from each other, also powerful, because we can see each other. But what happens, what scales geometrically, when the attention, the energetic attention actually comes all the way together to the center of the room, is unprecedented. And it will change your life. So the next time you are out dancing on the dance floor, I encourage you to do what's called speaker worship. Go right up and dance with the speaker, and you will have something vibrationally different. Well, you'll experience that, and that might look for you. Next time you're at the concert in the park, go sit in the front row. Be as close as you possibly can, and maybe. Rabbi, if you would consider it, we could try doing a service here together where we put ourselves right in the center and we just smush. So at ECERJ, it's on the list. Yes, at the ECERJ we have coined the term the smush, and it doesn't matter if you can't see, because it's not about seeing. It doesn't matter if you're behind. There is no behind. It's just a energetic connection.
I want to just name, like, that is a way that you lead, right? You lead people potentially out of their comfort zone, but definitely closer, more proximate to each other, and how they can feel and be in each other's presence and sing together in a different kind of way. And also, just to continue on that thread of the repeating fractal, right? The impact, you're leading the leaders, right? You're leading the teachers. So sometimes I almost get overwhelmed thinking about it in the best kind of way, about you have no possible way of knowing every child that you've impacted because one of their teachers came and spent time with you in that moment.
Was there a question in that, or were you just
nope?
Were you just
stating the beauty of that?
Were you being with me in this?
Yeah.
I'm one of the practices I am dedicating into right this moment in my life is the practice of being with. I've been in a deep study of contemplative care and palliative care, and learning through the Zen precepts actually what really is happening when we are being with people through what's happening in their lives, especially at the bedside. And you just reminded me of that like in some ways the greatest way to be present is just to be with.
Absolutely. It's the time in our conversation to talk about Queen Esther.
All right.
I know.
Bring it.
Because Esther inspires this entire podcast because of the moment when Mordecai says to her, who knows, maybe it's just for this moment that you find yourself in a position of leadership. And, right, talk about being present, being in the place. She is in the physical place, in the palace, and she is in a place, a position, positional authority as the queen, lack thereof. We can talk about that maybe. But she is the only one who can save all the Jewish people. And since we have a room full of people, we have to say who she has to save them from because we can get a little energy back. She has to save them from Haman. See, it works at any time of year. Not restricted to 1 week in Adar. But so I love to ask people who are as deeply immersed in Jewish wisdom, Jewish life, Jewish text as you are, how do you understand, interpret, even read yourself into Esther's story and her amazing leadership model?
Esther's story is, in fact, incredibly complex.
Yes.
So that really narrows that moment even more, because it is not just a wide net of, baby, I was born this way. I mean, it's so particular. I'm thinking of not exactly one particular moment, but so many moments when I have opened my eyes and recognize that we were, that even if I was terrified to open my mouth and to use my voice, that I was already using it before I could stop myself. I'm thinking of moments in the first year after October 7 when my colleague and I made a choice to make a video publicly, not to raise arms and go to the streets with aggression, but to ground and come home to oneself. And I'm thinking of that moment because we have been in such extremes of emotional outburst and really responding out of terror, out of fear, out of anger, and saying in a moment like that, I want us to take a breath, and we're gonna hum together until we can find a common vibration and be with each other. That was not what was being expected and not what was going out into much of the media, but that was a moment of realizing like this is like where I entered the picture as a community leader. I'm thinking of so many different moments where a few weeks ago we began Parshat Bamidbar, and my community, I said, how will we embark in Bamidbar together? Bamidbar means we're going out into the wilderness. We're going out into the unknown. We had just been singing the praises of our ancestor Miriam and how her well, her nourishing, living waters well followed her where she went. But after she died, the well dried up. And so what was the nourishment supposed to come from? So we built a ritual that night. And this is where, like, these are the moments where I'm feeling like it's not quite go big or go home, but just stand up, Shira, wake up, and say what you want to say. What would it be like if I were to be able to lead from my actual voice? And that is a very special feeling that I learned from Esther. In the moment of the practice, the ritual that we did around the well, the story is quite amazing that after the well dried up, wherever our Israelites camped, the leaders of the tribe, that's us in here, would show up at this, a big rock would roll with them. This big rock that was shaped like a beehive, perhaps, would roll, or a sieve, it's unclear. But this rock would roll with them, and then when they would stop where they stopped, it would barrel itself into the ground. This is the story. I didn't make this up. I'm just quoting from the Midrash here.
It's crazy when you can just quote the text and you don't have to change, and it's just, that's what it is.
This is why I'm saying the books are just scripted dreaming, okay? And the leaders of the community, exactly who's here, would stand around the rock and sing to it, rise, 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 rise. And then the well would rise and the water would come. So when a story like that comes my way and I realize, like, if we're going out into the wilderness, into the unknown, which is exactly the paradigm shift that we are in right now, what will be the spiritual tools that we call in, that we excavate and find, that are ours and in our bodies already? This is our story. So the Esther moment is a real moment of being able to say, you know, I am, and just be here now.
I think also for me, and I'm curious for you, Esther's defiance of royal decree that no one could approach the king without permission, Esther's vulnerability to reveal her Jewish identity that she had been hiding, right? Her name means hidden. She took a lot of risk, and all season long on the podcast, we've been talking about this idea of spiritual resistance, right? So, and we've talked about different versions of that throughout our conversation tonight already, whether it's standing up for what you believe and doing that in religious terms, in religious language, in that kind of context, and also to resist, to stand up, to rise up, thinking about all the different venues, spaces, ways that we can do that to turn things on their head, but to do it from a spiritual frame, but also a frame that perhaps provides some comfort as well too. Love it. If there's, thoughts you have about that idea of spiritual resistance related to Esther or not, what does that phrase, that frame mean to you?
I'm struck. The subject of spiritual resistance is like, this is the subject on my tongue every day right now. And when you put it into context with Esther, it changes, and I really appreciate this. So let me think with you out loud for a second. Esther was afraid for her life. That's the thing. She really was living, according to the literal storyline, she was living in this moment where she was afraid for her life. Not to mention that, if she didn't know what would happen if she revealed her identity. She had to be afraid of her life just going to the king, according to the story, right? So for her, spiritual resistance, she did not only come up with an amazing idea, use all of her wits, completely manipulate the powers that be with her own very wise choices, like let's party. She knew that the king would would love that. But in today's world, I want to say that it's possible that spiritual resistance in a place of extraordinary fear might just be the littlest turn. So she really, I want to use a sports term, but I'm not going to because I will get it wrong. But she she
hit it out.
She knocked it out of the park. For us, we may or may not knock it out of the park every day when we just face our greatest fears. But I wonder what it would be like to even face ourselves, to even be able to look in the mirror and ask any questions about, like, who am I in this moment? I wonder if the level of courage and spiritual resistance right now could just be resisting the onslaught of media and propaganda. I wonder if it might be localizing our energy and finding each other in a smush instead of staying isolated. So I feel like we could go for ages in this direction, so we'll edit this out in some ways, but I'm noting that I'm having like a feelings reaction to this question in a new way because we're putting it in terms of Esther, and I so appreciate that. I think there's a spiritual bypassing that happens when we're like, spiritual resistance, yeah, radical joy, radical resistance. There's so much language out there, but the truth is that what Esther had to face was extraordinary fear. And if we can begin by recognizing and being able to ask ourselves, what am I afraid of right now? What is really driving this fear? I think our direction, our spiritual resistance would come from a very true place.
Amazing. I think that there's so much there, and thinking about it through the lens of one particular character is inherently going to narrow the conversation, but also maybe make something concrete and bring us to new understandings as well. Shira, it's a joy to talk with you and to think through things, and I hope that folks have enjoyed listening along to us sort of piece out these different pieces and the big ideas. And so much of what you give to the world is also through music. So I wanted to invite you to share a little bit of music with us now, and we'll move things around so that we can do that and make that happen. But I know that the songs that you wanted to share with us are really deeply connected to a lot of the themes that we've been speaking about this evening as well.
Okay. So this topic of speaking to finding the still small voice inside us, that's in some ways, it's almost like the text skips that part. Like if Anita Diamond were to write, the red tent of Esther, what if it was just, what if it was a whole novel just on the moment before Esther made the next move? Because what did it take for her to really do that? Now, it's cute to be like, it was her uncle, Mordecai, it was the man. We have him to thank for it. We could say that.
But we know.
Yeah, so I really appreciate you bringing Esther into the room tonight. So I dedicate this to her. The song I want to sing is a love song. It's from Shir HaShirim. And it's a love song that is, again, you could say this is like a heteronormative story between a man and a woman. That's classic Song of Songs debate topic. You could say it's between, the Jewish people and God. That's another favorite association of Song of Songs. But in honor of Esther, I might say this is the conversation one could have with themselves if they can, take the time to slow down and sit with themselves, listening to all the teachers around them. And in the case of Esther, she had a whole people that she was learning from by tapping in. And in the case of Song of Songs, this is a piece you might recognize Kumi Lach. It means we could see it as a message to rise up inside ourselves. The winters have passed. Esther had to face a lot of heavy rains, and this too passes. Imagine Esther having this moment where she speaks to herself and she says, hello, beautiful me. Imagine she says to herself, hello, beloved me.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. You could feel, no one even wanted to clap, and I didn't even want to speak because we sat in the music, but we also loved that moment of the pause of the silence afterwards too. So thank you for that. Is there everything that you've shared with us this evening, all of your words and reflections and this song have been such a gift. Is there another gift, another song, one more before the evening is up that you want to share with us tonight?
Before I say, I just want to say, me too. I'm still like imagining Esther, like, dear diary, Anila dodivdodili, I am to you as you are to me. Like, I can be here. It's
maybe I'm gonna write that novel. We'll see. We'll see.
Yes.
Yeah.
You are here. You heard that. Okay. Oh gosh. I feel so moved by what you are doing here, Liz. You have that. I'm like, what could possibly come next? Let's sing a song from the Psalms. This is a song from the Psalms that mentions 4 mega concepts: Chesed, Emet, Tzedek, Shalom. Chesed, how do you translate Chesed?
Loving kindness is often what we do, but it's like so much more than that. That's why we need 2 words in English to even try.
Oh, great quote. That's great. That's a great point. Yes, I agree. Chesed, somehow it's one of those, it's almost an ineffable term. It's something that you feel. It's very hard to articulate. It's the smush. It's the effervescence. It's the scaling geometrically. It's connection. It's what it feels to actually be with. Some of the closest words I can come to is empathy, actually. And the psalmists say that, I have to retune this. Sorry. The psalmists say that chesed goes out and meets, like has a meeting, like a coffee date, with emet. And emet has a really simple, nobody has more than one word to define this one. What would you say, emet?
Truth.
Truth. So imagine the feeling of chesed and truth meeting. And the psalmists, they did that. They were the original lab shul. Thank you very much. Like the psalmists were like, let's ask some real questions.
And the original musicians, right? Psalms, while we receive them as poetry, as I, of course, learned from our beloved teacher of blessed memory, Rabbi Andrea Weiss, right? The Psalms are poetry. Yes. And they've been set to music. And Rabbi Weiss also liked to translate chesed, that word that we were winding and wrapping our way around, as covenantal love.
Ooh, covenantal love. That is so beautiful. That is beautiful. Like, that's very Anila Dodi V'Dodi Li too. Okay, so the psalmists, one thing I've learned through music also is that every song is its own being. And the psalmist told a story with this song, with this piece of poetry. They said, if chesed were to just burst out the door and just walk onto the street, she might say something like, chesed. Like, how would chesed sound if chesed had her own music line, something big and wide and rich? So feel free to sing it with me, especially if you're feeling a little chesed out there. You just big breaths, say, chesed, chesed. And chesed went on a coffee date, remember, to meet emet. Emet, 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 emet. I like that to be staccato.
On it, yeah.
So there's like a little space around it because emet is so particular. Emet, 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 emet. And here comes big, fat, rich chesed taking up all the space, because that's what empathy does. It just like holds space in a whole new dimension. Chesed emet, 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 emet. 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 What do you think they talked about? Don't tell me now, we don't have time because the Knicks are playing, but what do you think they talked about, you know? Like, what was the first question that Chesed asked Emet, and what could Emet possibly have asked Chesed? Will you write that novel also?
I will, but like, just, you know, are they opposites of each other, or are they mirror images of each other, right? I think that's what they would want to know about each other.
Are they the Shiviti of the universe, right? Is Chesed and Emet a divine palindrome, or what? The psalmists do not tell us. But they do go on to say, here's what comes next. There's another meeting happening across town, which is quite a romantic one. It ends with a kiss, by the way. So the next meeting that happens, it starts with, Tzedek, Tzedek, Tzedek. Who's that?
Justice.
Justice. She goes, Tzedek, Tzedek, Tzedek. And do you know who I may have already given this away, but who does she go and land a big kiss on? You remember? Shalom. Out comes, Tzedek, Tzedek, Tzedek. Shalom. Tzedek, Tzedek, Tzedek. Shalom. Tzedek, Tzedek, Tzedek. Shalom. Tzedek, Tzedek, Tzedek. Shalom. Chesed emet, 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 emet. 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 Tzedek, tzedek, tzedek. Shalom. Tzedek, tzedek, tzedek. Shalom. Do you think that the no justice, no peace was from the Psalms?
Very possible.
No justice, no peace. No justice, no peace. No justice, no peace. No justice, no peace. Hand to hand, face to face, eye to eye, heart to heart, hand to hand, eye to eye, face to face, heart to heart. I will tell you that this song has no ending, because we can imagine that Chesed and Emet are totally hanging out together, you know, out beyond the field of right and wrong, says Rumi. Chesed and Emet are meeting, and Tzedek and Shalom are, the psalmists say, kissing. I mean, again, I didn't make it up. I'm just quoting, right? Chava Mirel wrote those English lyrics for us to sing as well. So,
I mean, there is no end to that song, just like Ein Sof, right? There is no end. Another name, a very non-patriarchal one that we have for God. And we know that Chesed and Emet and Tzedek and Shalom are guiding us. They are values and ethics that can shape leadership and move us, hopefully, to a more whole, more just, and more peaceful world going forward, in great thanks to the contributions that you make to it through your music and leadership.
wow. Amen, amen, Salah.
Thank you so much, Shira. Thank you to our wonderful, wonderful audience, our listeners here at Kol Ami, and have a great night, everyone. Go Knicks.
Thank you.